here.
Yeah.
Her picture is in the original. They're hanging there.
Yeah, all those, I don't think so. All those certain ministers served all these churches.
Yeah, you want to be able to
Yeah, there's book backers from Love Across it. Built a Love Across it.
Oh, really?
She's still there.
Your tie is lovely,
He didn't hear you.
Tim.
Yeah.
Your tie is lovely.
My tie is what?
It's lovely.
Oh, lovely. I just found it at Goodwill.
Whatever they charge you is too much.
It has a lot of reasons.
Okay.
It's an interesting tie. Who made it? Does it say on the back?
This is the guy, the rest of you know It's the wine. Well,
Tim, is that a real tie or is that a clip? Can you, I used to know how to do that. I used to have a
That's a clip-ons?
I hate ties, period.
I have boxes of them
What's that?
from all those years of wearing ties. I mean, I have one of those ballet stands, and I bet it's this thick with just ties draped over it. And then I have about 3 or 4 boxes in the attic. I throw away.
I always had to be
Have to have a quilt maker make a quilt.
Now I got those.
I did Ken's ties.
Jacket with the patch.
I had a quilt like
Everybody in college, especially that state, wear ties.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I wore this, we're doing poles today, we're talking about voting since I work with poles. And this is what I wore to the pole thing. So.
Okay. I've been painting this week.
Oh, yeah, that's all the whole house, that's all I got to do. She was lucky to move.
Yeah, in the show I was watching, 600. They mentioned your turn. Yeah, your turn.
Oh, we need somebody tall to set the clock back.
It's trying to leave.
We were your boss.
I'm not used to this time yet.
All right, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this really beautiful fall day, nice and brisk, sunny. I have got a rip-roaring cold. It was really bad yesterday. You can tell my nose is stuffed up. I can't hardly breathe. Cough and cough and cough, so now my ribs hurt every time I take a deep breath or cough. It's like killing me. So I didn't get as much preparation as I like to do, so we may run a little short, or I may just have to be pulling stuff out of the air to get through this. But what we want to talk about today is the voting process, and we'll go through a little bit of the history of it. And the reason for that is I was a poll worker in New Paris at the election November 7th. That was an interesting experience. I've done it before in previous years, but I really paid a lot more attention to it this year because of the 2 issues that were on, the abortion issue and the marijuana issue. Which, just as a sidelight, in New Paris, where I worked at the Methodist Church, there are 2 precincts, 16 and 17. It actually, the marijuana and the abortion issue both passed in the city of New Paris. But it didn't pass on the whole, because when you counted the absentee ballots, all the people that voted early, then they both lost, which kind of fits the red thing of Ohio. But I was truly surprised because when we tallied the votes at the end of the day, at the end of the night, I was truly surprised that the people who voted that day, although, and we'll talk about the small community that every New Madison is the same way. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's history. Kind of going into the whole thing. Everybody knows who lives in what house, who lived there 20 years ago, and who lived there 50 years ago. So we'll talk about that.
The paper this morning had a map of Ohio showing the counties that voted for issue 1.
Yes.
Not very many counties passed that. Mainly up around Cleveland area. Yeah, okay.
This is your map.
Yeah.
And this tells you, if you can figure out the urban areas, the areas where there's city people, which even New Paris has city people, has younger people in it. Any place where it's primarily older people, this is Montgomery County, Hamilton, all around Columbus, and all the way up through Cleveland, Akron, all through there. But if you notice, there are enough people concentrated in the urban areas to outvote the giant mass of territory in the outside part. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. With the Ohio districts, the Ohio vote's about 55% conservative, so it's listed as a red state now. But 75% of Ohio representatives are conservatives because of gerrymandering, and we will talk about that too.
Would you point to where Greenville is, please?
Greenville is over here in the red part.
In the red part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Greenville is pretty red. I actually was going to look up Greenville's, and I kind of ran out of steam on that to see what, because you can go to the Secretary of State's website and you can look up and see what all the vote totals were.
It was 22 or 23% Dark County.
Dark County? Okay. So, and I'll just give you a little heads up. This is, you all know what gerrymandering is. This is where that came from. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, this was Veterans Weekend or Veterans Day. We had a nice parade in Greenville, which I got stuck at the end of, which I didn't realize there was a parade there. So they had traffic cones on the side streets so nobody could drive in. I just went between them and left because I wasn't going to follow the parade all the way down around the circle and then back again just to get out. I don't know why they opened up the road after the parade went through. So all the regular traffic is all lined up behind the police car in the parade. So that was pretty strange. Another small town example. Do we have any announcements?
I have a correspondence from UUA. It's concerning the last action at the annual conference. So I will let this back here, but it looks like there's a major overhaul, has been in the works actually for a couple of years, on the bylaws. And so it talks about how we can access that, and then it won't be voted on the final version until this summer's assembly.
Okay.
So I'll put this back and we'll talk about maybe some future service where we can talk about this.
And actually, I started out this week to start working on the UU principles. I was going to go through all the principles and give people a history of Unitarian Universalists. And then I got sidetracked on the whole voting thing. The more I was involved with it, the more interesting it got. So I kind of put the principles back. Derek is going to be here. Let's see. Crystal will be here the 10th. Derek will be here the 27th because they're not having church at El Dorado. And he's also going to be here the 17th.
Well,
he's going to be here twice in December.
On
right?
the 26th, we will be at El Dorado because that's the day, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. That's where our union service is, like once a year. Remember, we said 2 different.
I'm talking December.
I'm sorry, and I'm still back in November, so I'm sorry I've been lying.
So, well, that's what I'm trying to lay out for people, and I don't remember the dates. Derek just talked to us this week and said
I'll put it out.
Said he would be available for 2 Sundays in December, and Crystal will be available for 1 Sunday in December. So for 3 Sundays in December, we'll get a good, interesting presentation up here. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, if that's all the announcements, our prelude, which I don't even know what it is.
Pachelbel's Canon.
Oh, Pachelbel's Canon, perfect.
By Johann Pachelbel.
Yes, everybody loves Pachelbel's Canon.
and it's lengthy.
Well, that means I don't have to talk as long, which is a blessing.
But I'm going to keep quiet. Okay?
Yep. so much more when it's a live performance. There's no comparison with listening to it on a record as to listen to somebody play it. Okay, our chalice lighting, yesterday, tomorrow, today. Yesterday, our distant ancestors gathered around a flame to share their stories and find comfort. Tomorrow, our descendants will gather around a flame, talking of a life we will never know. But today, it is we who gather here around this flame, seeking, believing, and being together. Our opening hymn is number 52, In the Sweet Fields of Autumn. Perfect choice. Thinking about spring already. Our affirmation is how we belong. Unitarian Universalists can and do believe many different things about life's biggest questions, about God, the greater mystery, about what happens to us when we die, though you can't be a Unitarian Universalist if you don't agree about some of the more important parts of this faith. You can't be a UU, or you won't be much of a good one if you cling to prejudiced or oppressive views of others. If you in any way believe that someone else is somehow inferior or anything lesser than human. You can't be a UU if you can't tolerate big questions or critically examine what it is that you believe and why. You can't be a UU if you fundamentally believe there is only one path or one spiritual truth out there to make meaning of life and to understand it. If you cling to just one set of beliefs, dogmas, or creeds and shut out the possibilities and offerings of other traditions that are different from your own, you're not a Unitarian Universalist. As wide as our welcoming embrace is, there are some things that are non-negotiable for us as a people. Those non-negotiables are the inherent worth and dignity of each person, no matter who they are. The rigor of critical thinking about ourselves and our beliefs, the bounty of the world's traditions that each hold a piece of the cosmic puzzle, and about how we might understand these wild, wondrous lives of ours. No, you can't be a Unitarian Universalist and believe anything you want. You can believe in a lot of things, but there are some things, fundamental things, that bring us and bind us together as a tradition and a faith. I think that's pretty well put. A lot of people think UUs can do whatever they want, but they can't do whatever they want. There are certain boundaries that you have to stick with. All right, joys and concerns. As always, we'll light a candle for the Ukraine. We have our sunflowers. It's been kind of shoved back in the nose because of everything that's going on with our second candle, which is Israel and Palestine. But both are still of prime importance. Both are still the vision of people being tortured and living in subhuman conditions imposed by another people, not through the course of nature, but something that people have done to other people in both instances. And we can discuss on the Israel-Palestine situation. There are grievances on both sides that are legitimate. Both sides have things they can complain about the other, but neither side seems to be able to trust the other to make a good faith effort. Right now, the question is the hospitals, which Hamas is using according to the Israelis as headquarters, and which means the Israelis are trying not to bomb the hospitals, and yet they can't let Hamas proceed without being touched. So it's a difficult question, and I don't think anybody's come up with an answer yet. Anything else?
Light a candle.
I believe
Go ahead, Kenny.
Light a candle for veterans wherever they are.
Yes, and we didn't really talk about that, but we appreciate the veterans, not only the veterans from previous wars, but the people who are serving in uniform now. There's still a lot of things going on in the world which are difficult. Our service people in Iraq are being shelled or bombed by the Iranians to this day and are suffering injuries. Nothing major so far, but we're not out of the woods yet. Okay, Mike?
well, if we could extend that in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I think the latest news reports, I believe it was 39 or 59 babies hopefully being moved from this terrible situation, many of them premature children. And yet you think of all the other children, young adults, and adults, period, who have been killed in this horrible conflict. And we all know that all kinds of adjectives that describe war, but the years and years and years of tension and misunderstanding are playing out in a heinous way right now. So it's like another candle for them. They certainly deserve it.
And if anything we can do, which basically we're going to be talking about voting and the impact that people have on voting. There is a conservative movement that wants to send aid to Israel, but not aid to Ukraine. They want to strike out the Palestinian cause, the rights of the Palestinians. We may go through that sometime, a little history of Palestine, Israel, the way it was formed, what happened. Neither side is completely right. The Israeli settlers keep founding new settlements in Palestinian territory, taking their land, bulldozing their olive groves, pushing them out of their villages, and appropriating them for the Israeli settlers. But the Palestinians, the Hamas, the people who came into Israel and killed 1,200 Israelis, women, children, little babies, tortured them. There's no question but some of these people were tortured. They have photographic evidence of what was done to them. That is just inhumane. It's inhuman. But that does not represent all of the Palestinians. So, and that's what the difficulty is. We have to find a way to allow the people who have of good character and a good heart to rise to the top, instead of letting might and force. Because that's the way, and even in this country, and we can talk about that with the elections, a lot of election officials have quit because they've been threatened by conservatives saying that the vote is rigged and the ex-president won, and they threatened the lives of people who work in the voting things. These are old people who don't have any particular dog in that fight, and they don't want to be threatened. They don't want to have their lives in danger. And so they quit. But when those people quit, who does that leave to carry out the most important part of democracy, which is recording the vote? All right, anything else? I had some other stuff, but I can't remember it. My brain's all fogged up. So we'll have a candle for the things that we're trying to remember to say that can't. The problems that are going on in the world that we haven't drawn attention to yet, and they are myriad. There are problems everywhere under every rock. And we trust that people of goodwill and positive attitude can have an effect, can have some effect. We're not just paddling upstream and not getting anywhere. All right. Children's story. That's a quick one on voting. Let's see if it'll play. I have messed up with that.
What happens on election day? Let's find out. A presidential election happens once every 4 years. And election day is always in November. And it falls on the first Tuesday that is after the first Monday of the month. So election day can fall anywhere between November 2nd and November 8th. On this day, everyone goes to the voting poll location. Some voters who can't make it to the voting booth and know beforehand are able to cast an absentee ballot prior to election day. Make sure you mail your ballot in before election day. You should check your state laws for counting ballots. Each state is different. Once the voting polls are closed, each state will tally their results. And the results start coming in as everyone watches with anticipation, waiting to see who will win the election. If the election is too close to call, then it might be a few days or even weeks before we find out who won. I bet your parents are watching the news on election night to see who's winning the election. You should join them that night and see how it all works. And that's what happens on election day. Hey, if you want to learn more about the presidential election, we have a course at kidexplore.com that teaches you all about how elections work. It's in the link down below. Go check.
All right, that's a quick one.
Yeah, I'll see you over there.
All right. New Paris, the Methodist Church in New Paris, right in the center of town, is the polling position. There is some talk, and you may have heard about this on other states, particularly conservative states, which we are. They are consolidating polling places, and the rumor is that in New Paris, there's Jefferson North, which is where I live, and that's my actual voting place. So I was working at New Paris 16 and 17, but I had to leave my polling place and go to the place where I actually cast my vote, which is up the street about 4 blocks, to actually vote, and then come back to where I was actually working. So, but there's the rumor is that they're going to consolidate all of Jefferson Township and all of New Paris into one polling place, which is a way to cut down expenses, because you don't need as many poll workers, because you actually almost need as many workers, but you don't need as many supervisors. Each one of the polling places has a supervisor, which, if you're familiar with Ohio politics, is always a member of the dominant party or the party of the governor. So since our governor is a Republican, the judge or the supervisor in charge of the polling place is a Republican. When you're dealing in a small place like New Madison or New Paris, there's not really that much different. Everybody gets along pretty well. Particularly the people who are working at the polling places, they do it out of a sense of patriotism, but they also do it because they like to get together and talk to their friends on polling day. And that's what it is. It's a kind of a small community get-together, which I had seen before, but I really got into it 100% this time. There were 6 people there, 2 poll workers, and this is what I did, was the poll book. If you're familiar with the poll books from the old days, it was an actual book, and you looked up your name and then you signed your signature beside it. That's an actual paper poll book. Now everything is electronic, not connected to the internet. Nothing at the polling place is connected to the internet. So the Venezuelans and Hugo Chavez and the Chinese cannot manipulate anybody's ballot. Everything that's in those poll machines is a memory chip that has everybody's name and address in it. And what you do is, I'm sure hopefully all of you voted, You take your driver's license, which Ohio now has gotten really strict. It used to be you could bring a proof of that you live somewhere in the precinct, which could be an electric bill, a gas bill, a tax bill. Now it has to be a photo ID. It can be, most people use their driver's license, but it can also be a concealed carry photo ID, which is kind of interesting. And even more interesting, you cannot use your college ID, your photo college ID, you can't use that. Just one of the little indicators that somebody has their thumb on the scale. I mean, who do we want to vote? People who carry guns. Who do we not want to vote? People who are going to college. So we made it possible. So, and that, when we get into gerrymandering, you'll see basically both thumbs and probably half the palms on the scale there. So, our average age, I think, was like 70. Out of the 6 people there were like 3 hips and 2 knees. It was quite the crew. But the most amazing thing to me, and this is, I worked a couple years ago, not last election, but the election before that. And then I worked when we first moved to Ohio in 1988. That's when we still had a Democratic governor, and I turned out to be the judge in Pleasant Hill where we were living because they were lacking in Democrats, like there are a lot of places in Ohio. But what we found out was that everybody, or at least the people that I've worked with in the polling places, has a sense of humor that is unstoppable. These people laugh about everything, and they joke about everything, and they tease everybody who comes in. And of course, if you're 70 years old and you live in New Paris and you've lived there your entire life, which most of these people have, you know everybody who's coming in. So there's a lot of gossip that goes on. I was truly amazed, and some of it is good gossip. One lady came in and told us all about her double mastectomy and her chemo and how she was feeling much better. But you also have the people who come in and they explain to their friends about their kid who has epilepsy and he's not doing very good, and they're going to try a new program where they implant an electronic controller to control the epilepsy. You get all of the information from the village you get in the polling place as people are waiting to get their ballot and to go across. So, let's see. So there's Democrat and Republican, and there's a Democrat and Republican on this is when you scan the barcode, you put the driver's license in, it scans, it comes up, and if you're registered, everything just comes up fine, and you say yes, and you pass them on, pick up their ballot. Sometimes people will move, and particularly in small towns, it's kind of amazing the number of people that move like 2 doors down. I was living in Mom's house, and now I'm living in the apartment that Mom owns, or whatever. And if you don't change your registration, then what comes up on your driver's license is different than what comes up in your registration. So the answer to that is, and everything is in a rule book, if you move and you're in the same precinct, you can still vote. If you're in a different precinct, or you moved from a different precinct, or you got married and changed your name, or something happened and you changed your name or changed your address, you can still vote, but you vote what is called a provisional ballot. And a provisional ballot is a ballot that you fill out by hand, put it in a separate envelope with the election official explains why you're voting a provisional ballot. That all gets sent to the tabulation place at the courthouse at the end of the night. And those votes are not counted until you come in as the voter. Within 6 days, you've got 6 days. It used to be 2 weeks, but they're making it harder and harder to vote all the time. Mm-hmm. You come in within 6 days and present your evidence as to why you should be allowed to vote, that your name changed, but that's who you legally are, and you will be allowed to vote with that. As long as you can provide substantial proof as to who you are and where you're living, then you will be allowed to vote. If you don't show up, they throw your ballot out. If you show up and can't convince the election officials that it's a legitimate vote, then your vote does not count. So we had numerous people who had gotten married who changed their address. We also had numerous people who should be voting at Jefferson North, and somebody told them to come to the church in town, so we sent them to the polling place because it comes up then, they're not even listed in the poll book. So we say, where do you live? And they'd say, 5th Street. Well, you're in the township, you're not in the city. So go out there and vote, because they said they were registered. So it can get kind of complicated. Most people are pretty good humored about it, and you always get a few really strange people. And that's part of the fun of it is some people are funny strange. Like we had one lady come in, and everybody, not everybody, but one of the poll workers said, "Oh, your son voted before you did." And she got this look of panic on her face, and she said, "My son's only 17. He can't vote." They said, "Oh, wait a minute. I think that was your brother." Everybody in the family looks the same. That was your brother that voted. So that kind of stuff goes on. All right, you get your license documented, and then you move down to the next place, which is where you pick up your ballot. Now you can do an electronic ballot, which is you slide a blank piece of paper into the voting machine, and all the questions come up with a little square. You just hit the button, and it says yes here or no here, or a choice between 2 or 3 people. That is one of the sad things about living in rural America. Is for most of these positions, there's only one person running. Only one person. There is no election.
Or none.
Yeah, or none. And then somebody's appointed. Most of the time, if there's the parties, and particularly the dominant party, if nobody's running, they will appoint somebody to run and they will be put on the ballot. So usually you'll find somebody on the ballot, but very seldom. The sad thing is, we live in Jefferson Township, clear at the north edge, like right on the borderline of Darke County. So Eaton, the public paper in Eaton is the Register Herald. That is not, used to be, maybe it still is delivered free to some places, but it's not delivered free to us. I have no idea of who's running for these offices, for the township trustee, for the treasurer, the auditor for the township. I didn't recognize any of these names. And I actually went to the Register Herald website, and when we moved here 30 years ago, the Register Herald and the Palladium Item from Richmond, always before the election, had a big paper, a big section that just gave the vitals of every person running for the office and what the office was. None of that is going on anymore. It's impossible. Yes?
I think it's the county board of elections that post that, and they have to post it by a certain date. So those people filing petitions way back in the summer or whatever, there's a certain date anyway. You can get on their website and find all that information. It's just that the local papers don't always pick it up.
Right.
But issues, ballot issues like, as well as almost any elected position, anything that you have to file a petition for, it has to go through the board of elections and it has to be posted for the public by a certain date.
Right. And I looked on the Board of Elections, maybe I'm not looking in the right place.
It's hard to find.
Yeah, it wasn't in an obvious place, because I like to know who I'm voting for, and if I don't know, I don't vote. And I don't consider the township trustee or the auditor for the township to be like crucial things, but I still, or Board of Education is another one, and the Board of Education is pretty important. It's getting important now. So I would like to find somewhere, I guess I'll go back and look at the Board of Elections, or just call them and ask them where the information is. Because particularly the Board of Education is getting really important to know who's who and what's what. You might be aware that this was kind of a Democratic sweep. For some reason, Biden is really unpopular, but every state that's tried to limit abortion and had an amendment put on the ballot, every state, including the Kansas, Kentucky, all the conservative states have all voted to support a woman's right to choose. And unlike what you may have heard on television, it's not the right to abort anytime during the pregnancy up until the last time before it's born. You can't do that. It's not taking away the rights of the parents to talk to their kids or have control over their kids. The lies were flying thick and fast during that. And no matter what our governor and his wife said, it was a complicated situation, but it was not too extreme for the people of Ohio. Which, as we've talked about before, the state votes like usually 50% or 55% conservative, and we're 75% gerrymandered. So, all right, so you get your electronic ballot, you slip it in the machine, you mark your vote, and then when you get to the end, it will say if you didn't vote for, like if there was a person you didn't know and you didn't vote for them, it will ask you at the end, did you want to leave this section blank? And you'll have to agree to leave that section blank. And it'll spit your ballot out. You'll take it over to the tabulating machine, which is at the end of the table, And basically, you have to do this yourself. If you have Parkinson's or something, the poll worker will help you. But everything in the election is set up to maintain the integrity of the election, the privacy of your vote, and the idea that nobody can influence your vote or nobody can slip a different ballot in when you're not doing it. So you put your own ballot into the tabulating machine, and for God's sake, don't make a joke and say the shredder. We were warned about that. Somebody at one time said, just put your vote here in the shredder, and people like freaked out. So it's not a shredder. All it is a tabulating.
They use that in Venezuela.
Yes. And it's not connected to the internet. It doesn't send anything anywhere. We print out at the end of the night, we print a tape out, and then we take the entire machine. The judge delivers it to the courthouse, and they pull the guts out of it, and they also have the tape. And actually, we post the tape on the door of the voting place, the polling place. It's taped up there so you can go see how many people voted for mayor, how many people voted for trustee, how many people voted for councilman, whatever the ballots were, how many people voted for each issue is listed in public information right there on the door.
So when you say tape, does it do a printout or what?
It's
Is it magnetic media or what?
No, it's a actual paper tape like you get at the grocery store.
Okay, a printout.
Yeah, it comes in a roll.
Which they have to post. Don't they used to do a couple times a day, or is it just
At 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And it used to be, and sometimes you still see it, the parties will call at 11 and say, I want the tape of who's voted, because it won't say how you voted, but it'll say who's voted. They get on the phone and they call their people. You're listed as because I've done that before, you work the phones. You're listed as a registered Democrat in Preble County. We see you haven't voted yet. Do you need a ride to the polls? And they'll say either I'm not voting, or I don't need a ride, or I do need a ride. And if they need a ride, somebody goes and gets them and takes them to the polls. At 4 o'clock, they run another printout. Those printouts are run by the judge, and they're held there if anybody wants to come pick them up. Nobody did this time because there weren't any crucial. Usually that's for state and federal elections that you're trying to get the vote out. But that's where the tape comes from. And the tape is about this wide, and it's taped up to the door, so on the inside of the door, so you can see it and read it.
But the voting tallies and that kind of thing, are they contained within the machine?
Yes.
And then they're read once they get to the Board of Elections?
They are contained on the hard drive in the machine, and they're also printed out and we actually print another printout, and that goes in the bag. And everything that's there, the little clippers, everything has little seals on it, the little plastic thing with a tab on the one end, the little bumps on it. You put it like a lock and you stick it through and you pull the tab through so you can see that the machine has not been opened. All those things come in each one has their own, like a blue bag, a red bag, a purple bag. Everything is listed out and lined out. Flags, you put out flags 100 feet out from the polling place. No education, no polling, or no political education. You're not allowed to wear political signs, t-shirts, anything else. Some guy came in with a t-shirt that said 50th or 45th or 46th something. It was an anti-Biden t-shirt, but it didn't list his name. It was something about the president, and then throw the president out or something. And they said, technically you're not supposed to wear that, but this is New Paris, and nobody understands what your t-shirt says anyway, so nobody's going to say anything. But if you came in with a big Trump hat or something, they wouldn't let you do that. And actually, so I was tempted to wear. I have a Democratic tie that has little donkeys on it. No, you can't do that either. So I wore my EMS tie.
No donkeys or elephants?
No donkeys or elephants, right. Then you pick out your electronic thing and stick it in the machine, and it registers. And there's a lot of people that say, I don't trust that newfangled electronic stuff. So they want the paper ballot, which means you get the old-fashioned paper ballot that has squares on it, and there's a black pen in the booth. You have to fill in that square, and you have to fill it in completely, and you have to fill it in dark. When you take it over to the tabulating machine and you stick it in, a little wheel goes around and it tallies your vote, and it comes out with a big flag on the thing and says, congratulations, your vote has been counted. Sometimes it will spit your ballot back out again, and it'll say, we can't read your ballot. So if you drew lines all over the place, or you marked all over it, or you didn't make it dark enough, usually what we do is send them back to voting booth and tell them just mark it darker than what you did, and that usually took care of the problem.
So then that original document is forwarded to the Board of Elections as
Yes,
well,
that
and
all-
it's tabulated within the machine.
Yes, it's
So
tabulated.
it's not double counted.
No, but it is there if you want a paper count, which is what some of the people are demanding, that
Or backup.
there's a paper count each time. Luckily here, there's no hanging chads. I mean, it's just a paper ballot that you can count. But you can imagine how tedious it would be to have to go through every ballot and mark down whether it's yes, this, or no, that, or who it's voted for. Whereas the tabulating machines do it automatically at the end of the night. That's why now is like in the thing that said that sometimes you don't know for a week or two who wins.
Yeah.
They actually count the absentee ballots at the beginning of the night, so they're already counted by the time the actual ballots show up from the polling places.
Some states don't allow that, and that really
Yes.
delays national results.
And some states are going backwards. They're demanding that they use paper ballots and not use electronic ballots, which is making things harder on everybody. So, but that's part of the crazy, which we are investigating and haven't found an answer yet, why certain percentage of the population, 30 or 40% of the population, wants to go back to the dark ages.
It all involves the ego of a former president of the United States.
And I'm beginning to
The
think,
ego of losing.
yes, and I'm beginning to think, and I've heard this idea broached before, that somebody said by the year 2050, every fourth person in the United States will be of Hispanic descent. This is called the loss of power for the white middle-class Protestant. They're becoming a minority in their own country, and they are fighting this tooth and nail, and they will do anything to maintain their power. Anything, no matter how illegal it is. There's been a warning, because I'm going longer than I thought, that our past president, if he's elected again, he has already got procedures in place and hiring people to go after his tormentors. In other words, he thinks that because he's being in 4 criminal courts and been indicted 96 times, that's only because he's an opposition politician. He denies that he's done anything wrong. So anybody that's opposed to him, he's going to go after them the same way. He's going to turn the Justice Department, instead of a neutral body that enforces the laws on everybody, it's going to become a personal Justice Department doing his bidding. Whoever he wants attacked will be attacked, and whoever he wants defended or exonerated will be exonerated.
Back to election process. Did you have people coming in expressing concern about fraud or anything
Yes.
like that? You actually did?
Yes, we had people, lots of
Like
people.
veiled comments, or did they just say,
No.
hey, how am I going to make sure my vote's counted?
Yes, and we even had one guy come in and said, somebody's taking pictures out there. And our judge said, well, if they're on public property, it's not against the law to take pictures. He said, what are you going to do about it? He said, well, if they're taking pictures of the polling place, I can go hang a blanket over the window so they can't see in.
But he wasn't able to express specifically why he was concerned
No, it's just
about
it's
photos.
that free-floating anxiety that the world is out to get me. And somebody had,
Token protest that the elections are unfair.
right, and maybe trying to establish, maybe he's going to go to his meeting of the conservative gun owners and say, when I was at the polling place, somebody was taking pictures, and we know that was Venezuelan, doing something to change the election. These people, the imagination they have on how the election can be changed is pretty incredible. They come up with stuff that's truly unbelievable. Which, speaking of truly unbelievable, I want to get to. This is the positive vote, which actually Ohio, I'm sure you know this, passed the amendment to allow women's right to choose, along with a bunch of other factors in there, and they passed the legalization of marijuana. What you may not know is the Ohio legislature said, well, you can pass whatever you want as an amendment, but we're going to dilute it, change it, add our own laws, and make it so it's not going to work anyway. And they've already told us they're going to do that.
And that's for marijuana.
And abortion.
I don't know how they can change that one.
It's the same way that the Ohio legislature was told you have to set up new redistricting, fair redistricting, and you can't have gerrymandering. And they said, to hell with you, we're going to do it anyway.
And they have a Republican Supreme Court
And
now.
they got another Republican Supreme Court that said, okay, you can go ahead and do whatever. Remember what I said before? When you get to where you're losing power, you'll do anything to keep power, no matter what it is, and no matter how illegal and how unpatriotic it is. And that's where these people have been pushed down to this position. And they will, It's kind of like listening to the Palestinians say that the Israelis deserve to die, the ones that were killed. I mean, we know they don't really think that, but they're saying it in the same way the Israelis are saying, we don't care if they kill all the Palestinians as long as they get rid of Hamas. We know people, maybe some people really think that, but most real human beings don't. They say that because they're pushed and they're angry and they're mad and their back is against the wall. Hopefully they don't really mean that. But the trouble is, a small minority of people can take over the government, just like in Nazi Germany, and they will find people who will enforce those laws and enforce those doctrines. And so you had gas chambers and roving execution trucks. They had in Germany, but when they first started out, they used to drive like a 2-ton truck with a cover over it, and they just would put the exhaust pipe, a hose from the exhaust pipe into the back, lock the people in the back of the truck, and gas them with carbon monoxide. That's how they started out, killing people. And these people were doing it on a regular basis. That's their job. Can you imagine that's your job, is for women and children and innocent men to put them in the back of the truck and then drag their bodies out and throw them in the ditch?
Tim, if you look at that map also, now that map that you just had represents for issue 1.
Issue 1, yes.
I've looked at this, I haven't done it yet, but I want to. That will almost superimpose with great congruency on the map of the August election for issue 1,
yes,
which was requiring 60% vote for constitutional amendments. If you look at that, it's almost congruent, and it'll be interesting to see and study that, particularly those pollsters as well as researchers, that it's almost all rural Ohio, okay, that is voting for these one way or the other, and it's the cities, as you pointed out already, that are really influential in whether it passes or fails.
And that's why we're talking about now gerrymandering. If you looked at the way the voting went, the gerrymandered districts, what they do is, and gerrymandering started out, this gerrymander, this is a cartoon that was printed in 1812 in Massachusetts. There was a governor named Eldridge Gerry, only his name was pronounced Gary. Governor Eldridge Gerry was the governor of Massachusetts in 1812. This is what the legislature drew up, which is, this is one of the districts in Massachusetts. And the local newspaper cartoonist said, that looks like a salamander. And so then they called it the gerrymander, and over the time it became pronounced gerrymander. But that's where the name gerrymander came from. The first time this little weird, and what they amounted to was they put all the people who vote a certain way in a compact little area. And you'll notice this around Columbus, around Hamilton, which is Cincinnati, Akron. All the black people, all the urban people, everybody who votes a certain way gets jammed into one district no matter what it looks like. And the other, because you have to have the same number of people in each district. So you'll take a rural district and make it huge and go all over the place with it. And then you'll take an urban district and make it small, but you'll run it along the corridor. Usually it's along the interstates where the people who have the suburban houses and tend to vote more liberal. You'll get all those people into the same thing. So you'll have the right number of districts, but the districts will be overpacked to where all the conservative or all the liberals are, well, it can be either one. I mean, Democrats have done this too. It's not only conservatives that have done this. They pack the people that, and then where this actually got started going good was after the Civil War, when blacks became to vote. It didn't happen right away because the Ku Klux Klan and everybody else made sure blacks couldn't vote. But as the civil rights thing started up, all of a sudden the politicians, and in those days, and we go over this all the time, they were Democrats in those days, and they all became Republicans. So don't try and tar and feather the Democrats with being racist, because the Democrats who were racist are now Republicans. They're the same people, they just changed their name. But what they did was they packed, like some of these states, Alabama, Mississippi, like more than half of the population is black, but they have no voting registration or voting representation whatsoever because they're all jammed into one little district that runs all over the place. And then the white people are spread out over the rest of the state, so they get more representation. Like I say, the same thing has happened in Ohio. So Eldridge Gerry became gerrymandering, and that's how that ended up like that. And this is the current congressional districts, and you can kind of see where they run. This is like, this color here is one district. This is a district up in Cleveland. Here's the district around Columbus and down into Cincinnati. And then this whole giant thing is all these the rural places. That's how they manage to control who votes. And the ability they have now with computers, because they can track the vote with a computer, they know what block on what street votes what way, and they do it basically with the computer to fit it exactly into that. And that's why Ohio has 55% basically conservative vote and 75% conservative representation, because they've changed the districts. And everybody knows that's not right. The districts should be set up basically on a square to get the right number of people in.
Used to be.
And they used to be like that, but they're not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't that yellow in Jim Jordan's district?
Jim Jordan is, yeah, I think it is. Yep. So, I think that's, well, I thought I didn't have enough stuff, and I've actually went over, so, okay. Any comments, more comments, questions? We'll be going into principles of UUism in the future, but voting will always be something that we consider. And there's a thing comes out called, and Mike knows, the Capital Journal, that gives you a report of the shenanigans that they're up to all the time. And every week there's something new coming on.
It's free, it's an excellent source of information. Capital Journal, just Ohio. Ohio politics, policy, lawmaking, legislation, and judicial, all in one wonderful digest.
Yep, and it's done really in a small, concise area. The latest one that I saw, First Energy, the people who bribed everybody to get the increase in the electric bills to cover their losses on the nuclear plants and the coal plants. And then the president of the Ohio legislature, what was his name?
Householder.
Yeah, Householder. Actually, he's going to jail for being a crook.
20 years.
Yeah, well, he's never going to serve 20 years, but he was convicted. He's actually going to jail for some amount of time. First Energy is back asking for subsidies again, and the conservative Ohio legislature is once again going to give them subsidies to cover the money-losing coal plants, because literally it is cheaper now to make energy with solar and wind than it is with coal. It's cheaper to use solar and wind than to make energy with coal. But these people do not want to lose the investment they've got in their coal plants, so they're making the populace subsidize their money-losing plants. So, okay. The offering. Once again, if you can put something in, please do. If you need something, feel free to take something out or to talk to us, and we will direct you to the people who can help you. We probably won't give you any money ourselves, but we know where to go to get you some help.
This is from around the World War I area.
Okay? closing hymn is 68. Come ye thankful people, come. Keep the chalice flame burning. Be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. Postlude.
This is called Till We Meet Again.
invisible wounds that take the greatest toll. Pamela Watts of Rhode Island PBS Weekly reports on a program that helps ease those struggles with horses.
Winston Churchill said, the outside of the horse is good for the inside of the person, and it's true. There's a magic that happens of being around an animal that large with that type of energy. Thank you.
On this Connecticut farm in 2015, Thor Torgerson co-founded a nonprofit to help combat veterans.
I have seen individuals who have been homeless, addicted to drugs, incapable of walking on their own without a walker or a wheelchair, become fully mobile off of their addictions, own their own home now, drive. Incredible, it's 100% transformation. We kind of had that anecdotal data where there have been individuals who told me that they have not ended their lives because of this program. Start to make a turn, he's going to want to walk out.
The program is simply called VETS, or Veteran Equine Therapeutic Services.
Horses are, just by nature, the poster child of PTSD. They have hypervigilance, trust issues, fight or flight issues, all of the markers that are traditional PTSD markers. And that is a survival mechanism. And we have veterans who come in who have those same issues. And when they come in, I kind of jokingly say, "You're just a horse," and we can work with that.
The equine specialists first encourage veterans to totally unwind, shaking off tension with deep breaths to let the horse know they are calm, in control, and a decisive leader.
If you put both hands on him and do that same breathing exercise, you're trying to relax and make him relax by you relaxing.
Torgerson says horses are perceptive. They can sense anger and stress in humans. Empathy, compassion, and emotional management lead the horse to respond. The hope is veterans take those skills off the farm and into their lives. And it doesn't require mounting a horse, just harnessing trust.
Because if I taught you how to ride a horse and then you never interacted with the horse again, the skill of the experience would be wasted versus coming to get to understand an animal at a very deep level that makes you understand yourself at a very deep level.
Torgerson says the program can be transformational.
There are people who have had to see and do things that no one should have to see or do. You want to stuff those in the darkest place if you can, and many people feel that they can never come back from that darkness.
I wasn't worried. Just a lot of bad things done to human people, a lot of wrong, that you would see in a humanitarian situation. Walk on.
Mike Warren found himself in that darkness. He was an 18-year-old Marine when he was deployed to the Gulf War. On the way, his company was rerouted to evacuate U.S. citizens from Liberia during its civil war.
I saw, a kid out on the street, he had to be like 11 years old, shoot an adult, and those are just things that you never forget.
And then there were 2 deployments to Iraq.
How did you get diagnosed with PTSD? What happened to you?
Well, I didn't know until later. I ended up going to an alcoholic and drug rehabilitation treatment.
So you were self-medicating?
Yeah, I self-medicated, and...
Because why?
To try to suppress the feelings that I had of the things that I've seen.
How did this program make a difference for you?
I'm here today because of the program.
Really?
Yeah, because I was in the hospital 5 times for suicide. Want to commit suicide. Go.
Warren is now a volunteer here, caring for more than the horses. He helps veterans entering the program. Some 100 service people have come through these gates, all served free of charge. Families of veterans also benefit. Sarah Stepalovich was pregnant with a young son at home when her husband was deployed with the Coast Guard. She gave birth to her son with Down syndrome and was raising both boys alone while her husband was frequently at sea.
I like to say that out of something really dark came something really beautiful. I was at a moment of total crisis. My oldest is here all the time. He loves coming out here. My youngest absolutely loves it here. My husband has benefited from this program. I mean, this is my second home, this is my second family. I found my tribe.
Stepalovich also found her calling at the farm.
I'm trying to get certified in equine body work. I'm getting, hopefully, my equine specialist in mental health and learning.
Mike Warren believes the program has helped him communicate better with family and friends.
The horse starts to like bring you down and break you down, you know. So it opens your heart. He's a good boy. You're a good boy, aren't you?
Warren cherishes a breakthrough moment. While cleaning the paddock, this horse named Gump showed his appreciation.
He came up to me, he put his head right on my shoulder. It just like lowers everything down. It almost like can bring you to tears.
In this space and at this pace, soldiers who have returned home from war are finding peace.
When I'm here, I'm not there. You know what I mean? When I'm here with the horses, I'm in a different place, tranquil place. It's a lifesaver. You're a good boy.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm Pamela Watts in Stonington, Connecticut.
Okay, and we all know that horses are not just sunbeams and puppies. they can be a problem at times too. There are cookies, coffee cake, and coffee.
We had a good showing last week at the other church, didn't we?
Yes, I thought that was really, I'm
I was
encouraged.
impressed,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm encouraged. Yeah, I think that's, we're kind of on the road. We can get them to come over here and go over there. And Gary is always does a